Hi, I'm Patrick.
And I'm Liv.
And this is the Mach-E Vlog. Today we're going to talk about the big news of the week, the Tesla SuperCharger team being laid off, but try to sort of take a look at it from our perspective as Ford EV owners.
So let's go.
If you don't want a recap of the news, just check, we'll have a chapter so that you can skip all of this. But if you don't know the news, we're going to just give you a quick summary. So on Tuesday morning, it was a complete shock to the employees and to the rest of the EV world. Tesla basically laid off their entire supercharger department that's responsible for like the business side of things, planning and deployment of new supercharger stations. I believe it's about 500 people that got laid off. It was a shock to them. They had no idea that it was coming, apparently. There's some rumors about some stuff that was going on. We don't want to necessarily get into too much, but it affected everything. Like apparently the maintenance side is still there and still functioning, but a lot of the stuff that goes into deploying new supercharger sites, permitting, making payments to the property owners, doing the permitting, all of that stuff, like the entire team has been laid off. And later that day on Tuesday, Elon tweeted out and said basically they are going to slow down supercharger deployments and focus on reliability and expansion of current sites. There's been some rumors and some other information that's come out since then. A lot of it's really hard to confirm because this is all internal stuff, but apparently there's a rumor that Elon has been doing layoffs at Tesla and has wanted all of his managers to, like trim the fat and get down to like the bare bones super team, very dedicated, very productive workers. And apparently there was some pushback within the supercharger team. So his solution was to axe the whole supercharger team. We don't know if that part's true, and really it's irrelevant. It's like, I feel very bad for all 500 people, but there's nothing that we can do about that. What we're going to try to focus on is like the actual news and as it applies to us as EV owners and other people in the EV industry. What else with the actual news? Oh, the other thing is like there's another email that's come out recently, and you read this one. I've seen the summary of it, but it was sent out to basically anybody that Tesla supercharging team may have had contact with.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember it, and let me reference it quickly. So I just wanted to have a quick peek at the email again, because there's a lot of rumors going around. People are saying a lot of things, and we kind of don't want to say anything that's not from the horse's mouth, so to speak, because there's a lot of confusion. So basically the email said, don't break ground on any new sites, but keep working on sites that are in production. It didn't have much more information than that, and I'm sure anyone involved wants more information. So
yeah, it was really weird looking at it because it just basically sounded like if you're doing something, continue doing it. If you're not doing anything, don't start anything new, and just please be patient. And which is sort of weird. It's also almost, to me, it's like if somebody like a very small company or an individual is like, hey, hold on, I got to figure out what happened. Like I lost my checkbook or something. But this is like a major corporation, the leader in DC fast charging. And they're basically going that, yeah, we don't know who's been paid, who hasn't been paid. We don't know what the status of projects are. And they're not saying like these sites are paused and these sites are a go. They're like, we don't know what you're doing. If you haven't like moved dirt, stop. If you are moving dirt, continue. And hopefully you'll get paid when we figure it out.
Yeah. And I mean, they say literally that patience is not easy when you're expecting to be paid, and that they're streamlining their payment procedures. So I don't know how much money goes into breaking ground and building a site, but it's expensive. A lot.
Yeah.
I
mean, we're dealing with some, if you watch one of our other videos, we're dealing with some house issues, and we're dealing with like insurance and trying to make sure people get paid and things like that. And it's like, people want to get paid, and it's like, it's a small company that's trying to pay their employees. And that happens with DC fast charging as well. Cities are expecting their payments for for permitting fees and things like that. So if those aren't being paid, there's usually penalties involved. So it's a big mess. There's a couple of things. One of the reasons I wanted to mention this part of it was one, this disrupts the whole EV industry because you don't want these companies. They may doubt Tesla, but they also may now doubt other EV charging companies. So they may go like, yeah, I don't like dealing with those EV companies. And we all know there's like the naysayers when it comes to EV cars. And that applies to like EV infrastructure as well. So you don't want to create any doubt in that industry that is spread further than it needs to be already. And then the other part is like there's a lot of stuff that we are worried about, like the bigger effects. I think I'm jumping ahead, so I took some notes so that we don't jump around too much, because I know we've watched a lot of videos and there's a lot of information going about. And if you haven't, checked out Kyle Connor's videos with Out of Spec, Tom Malogny did one. We're trying to we'll repeat some of the stuff that they have said, because we don't have completely the same audience, but we also want to put in our perspective a little bit. And part of that is what about us Ford EV owners, right? Specifically, the Lightning and Mach-E owners and e-Transit owners that are waiting for a Tesla adapter. Everybody has been worried about that, and there was some thought because Ford sent out an email for a lot of people that are waiting for their adapters late last week, saying the adapters are being delayed, and not delayed as in several months. It's basically, for the most part, it's like they're getting them out slower than they expected, and that's it.
Seems to have been like a month delay for each person that I've seen. Yeah,
some people no delay, some people a month. Excuse me. And some people are like, oh, did Ford know? Basically, I don't think one had to do anything with the other. It was, from what I understand from people that I've talked to that just sort of know about the Tesla adapter, nobody from Ford specifically, but just people that know about the Tesla adapter is like, no, that's being manufactured, and technically Tesla just contracted it out. And it's just a matter of getting those here to the U.S. because I think they're being manufactured overseas. So that's really all it is. And then as soon as Ford and Rivian get them, they're turning around and then they're going to be shipping them out. So this doesn't really have anything to do with any of the SuperCharger stuff and the layoffs. But did talk to somebody from Ford, and their stance right now is their plans for Ford EV owners has not changed. So there may be some of these slight delays in getting adapters out. But as of now, if you have an adapter, you can use the Tesla SuperChargers. None of that has changed. If you are a Rivian owner, basically the same thing applies. So we're sort of in a lucky good spot right now. As of right now, things haven't changed. We're still getting SuperCharger access. If you don't have an adapter, you should still be getting your SuperCharger adapter. So that's really, really good news. Where it comes into play a little bit, and this applies to some other stuff, and I'll probably have it in my notes later on as well. But some of the deployment, like we are very excited by a lot of the SuperChargers that we do have access to. We don't have access to every single Tesla SuperCharger. We have access to about 15,300 of the actual chargers. I believe it's a couple of thousand stations. We were hoping to see like some of the gaps filled in and new SuperCharger stations come online for us. Now, I don't think any of that's going to take place, at least for a while. We were also hoping to see version 4 SuperCharger stations. So Tesla has like their older versions. They have still a lot of version 2 SuperChargers that we don't have access to. All of the version 3s that are currently out there, we have access to most of those. And then the version 4s we were excited about because they're going to have longer cables. The site designs were going to be slightly different, so it'd be easier for us to charge without taking up 2 spots. I was excited by that, was even telling people like a lot of these problems with using a SuperCharger and taking up 2 spots will be fixed by version 4s coming online. And a lot of the gaps that we see, because all there is right now is a version 2 station that we don't have access to, I was like, don't worry, there'll be version 4 stations coming at some point. And you can see some of those that are in the planning stages, and that is all on hold. Like, we don't know. And part of that is, and this may be related to why there are some SuperCharger team layoffs, was the version 4 stations that have been rolled out aren't even really version 4. They're version 4 posts. So like the actual charging unit has changed, but the back end has not changed. So really there's not much improvement, and there's still issues. Like if you're trying to charge a Tesla Cybertruck, you're not getting, faster speeds because the back end support isn't there for it yet. So maybe that's one of the reasons why Elon wasn't happy with the SuperCharger team was doing. But that's, back to us as Ford EV owners. We were really excited by the expansion, and this is like frustrating to not see the expansion. So,
and you've seen us in videos, and if you haven't, feel free to watch some of them. We've been testing out the NACS adapter. We've been testing out superchargers. So we've had experience with busier chargers. There's certainly locations that are available to us in our area that we would never charge at because they have a smaller number of chargers. We try to only go to like 12 to 20 and above kind of thing. And these locations have waits, or they're far too busy, or you've seen us having issues trying to get into the actual charging location, trying to not scratch the front of the vehicle and get close enough for the cable to reach. So in all of these ways, we were excited about the expansion of superchargers, so greater access, just more chargers, more infiltration in the charging network so that this great demand has some kind of abatement. And then, of course, the version 4s, like Patrick said. So now perhaps we're going to have to rely on third-party extensions or things like that.
Which Tesla was working on an extension cable. I'm assuming that's dead in the water now. Not that I necessarily wanted one of those, but that was like, well, it would be an option. And of course, we would try to test it out to make a video about it. So that's disappointing to see. And I do also want to touch base on, a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, this actually makes sense. Stop expanding the network so far and just make the current ones bigger. A couple issues with that. One, there's a lot of sites that can't easily get bigger. They're sort of space constrained. We were just at Santa Isabel, and there's 8 stalls there, and the owner of that property wishes there were 4 stalls. Apparently he thought there was only going to be 4. There's 8, and he's upset about that, or they, I should say. I don't know if it's he or she or whatever. So there's going to be issues like that. In addition, even if you're going from like an 8 stall to a 16 stall, that takes connection with utility companies, that takes retrenching, that takes, which is hiring a construction company, that takes permitting, it takes a new lease agreement. That's basically all the same stuff you do for a new site. So the idea of you got rid of all the people that are good at expanding locations and you're going to focus on expansion of current sites doesn't make a lot of sense, because they basically, it's like the same thing, like, yeah, you may have, you don't have to go find a new site. That's, that'll save you that, but you have to investigate your current site and still contact people, negotiate, set up agreements, hire companies to do the actual construction. So there's still a lot of work that that team of 500 was doing. So that's another issue that I see.
And tangentially, on a personal level, I like the idea of multiple sites. I think EV charging is an exciting thing for businesses. Having a small amount of charging, let's say 8 stalls or whatever, could be a great draw to the businesses in the area. But then that also means that the businesses across the street could benefit as well. And then we, as EV users, could benefit from having access to, like, do you want to go park by the one by the Taco Bell or the KFC? I know they're like both next to each other. I'm trying to think of fast food.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, we'd have actual options instead of like, we could go to the Walmart or we could charge at the Target or whatever. So like, we need that. We don't need just these huge charging stations.
Well, it's, so like around in a suburban area or urban area or whatever you want to call, like around us in northern San Diego County, there's like a supercharger 8 miles away, another one 10 miles away, another one like 12 miles away. I don't really care for those to necessarily get bigger. It'd be nicer to see like, okay, those are all south of us. It'd be nice to have one that's east of us, one that's west of us, that's 4 miles away or something like that. Although of course we're charging at home, but if you're vacationing in this area, you don't want to be like, I got to drive 8 miles inland to use that big supercharger. You want one right by the beach.
And there are tons of places that we spend time nearby, right? We spend an hour in a grocery store, we spend an hour at the movies, we spend an hour at the gym, whatever. These are all in the future for expanding charging, all potential places that we can charge while we're doing our daily lives.
And on road trips, it's the same thing. It's like, I don't necessarily, it's like, it's nice to see those big, like quartzite 84 stall superchargers, but it's also like the way that, your bladder is, as well as your range is like, it's nice that supercharger is there in quartzite, but it'd be nice to have one maybe 20 miles short of there, so that if I want to go to the bathroom and charge, it's like, I don't have to go like, oh, I got to hold it till quartzite. But you guys get the point. It's like, I advocate having multiple sites. There may be some solutions to that, and that sort of goes into, I want to go skip around here. That goes into the next point, like Electrify America, ChargePoint, EVgo, all of these other. Iona, that's the one I was going to add to it. Iona is new. It's basically like GM and Honda, BMW, some other manufacturers getting together, and they're sort of forming their own charging network. They have a lot of ambitious plans. Very excited to see what they come out with, but nothing is actually in the ground yet. So, let's see what they actually come up with. Electrify America just had a press release yesterday. They're talking about expanding from, I believe, like 4,000 stations to 5,000 by the end of this year, which is a great increase, although it's behind what they were projecting in 2021. It's good to see them like saying like, we're getting on the ball and we're going to start expanding again. EVgo has signed some deals with like Flying J. They're doing some good expansion. So it's really cool to see these other brands starting to step up, and hopefully that's true and we'll see that continued. I'm excited to see that, and I think there's some opportunity for them to hire some talent. All of these skills are specialized when it comes to people that understand like what they need from power companies, what they need from construction companies, what they need in lease agreements, what they need in site selection, because that's like a huge thing, is site selection. You need people that know all of these details so that we're getting good DC fast charging stations. Maybe some of that talent will get dispersed, so there's an opportunity there. And maybe there's an opportunity for some of these other charge point operators, to get some of these prime sites that Tesla was getting. So maybe there's some opportunities there if people are willing to seize that. We talked to, one of these charge point operators at CES, actually just in the aisles of CES, not even at their booth. And they were talking about they want to focus on doing some more expansion because, as I was saying earlier, it was like making their current sites bigger is almost or the same complicated process as building new sites. So they want to build new sites. So that's a positive thing. And I think there's we're on the cusp of some very exciting things with EV charging. And we sort of got lost in the like, oh my gosh, Tesla superchargers are here to save the day because of all of the manufacturers switching to that. But let's not lose sight of the fact that we need a wide array of charging options, including speeds. But I think better off, we need a large array of charging companies so that, if we won't even say brands, but like brand A is, 45 cents per kilowatt and brand B is 55 cents per kilowatt, and they're at the same freeway off ramp, which one are you going to pick? Most of the time you'll switch to the cheaper one. So hopefully competition will help as well, instead of having one huge dominant player like Tesla has been so far. And although their pricing has been pretty good as well.
The pricing has been good. But we're not 100% reliant on Tesla. And from the get-go, I think I speak for both of us, that we were both excited that there's a standard. It's just more that we don't want to fight about how we're going to plug in and what we're going to use and what technology there is. If there's something that's great, we should all have access to it. All the automakers should have access to it so that it benefits us. You don't want to be like round peg, square hole kind of thing. Like, can we all just use the same thing? So that's where we are now. Everyone's getting on board that we're going to be using the same thing. And we're not actually dependent on Tesla anymore for releasing what is now SAE J3400. Now we have access to this. And when I say we, I mean the entire auto industry and us as consumers. So the sucky thing is that they're not going to be, at least right now, clearly developing the SuperCharger network, which is a huge fail on their part. This is an incredible opportunity for Tesla to become like the energy standard. This was a great opportunity for them. They were on board. They welcomed everyone on board. And this is a failing or a downside for them. This is a terrible decision for them, it seems like, and I don't understand it. But the rest of the industry still has this opportunity and needs to pick up the slack, unfortunately. Hopefully, Tesla will change plans, backtrack, decide to hire everyone back, and hopefully everyone gets paid more or something like that. But like truly, I think that unfortunately things will be slowed, and SuperCharger development, of course, will be slowed. But there's a ton of other people, a ton of other companies, a ton of other automakers who are gunning for this and who are now seeing the opportunity, I'm sure, both to snap up the talent and to snap up the place in the industry, because Tesla had this incredible opportunity. Like they dropped it. I don't know why they dropped it. We don't know why.
Because think about this, like if you are an EV advocate and you have an EV and you are in the EV industry and you're like, I want to get into somehow building the EV charging network, and somebody is like, hey, do you want to go work for Electrify America, or do you want to go work for the Tesla SuperCharger network? A week ago, I'm just going to guess, like 95% of the people were probably going like, hey, I'll work for Tesla SuperCharger network because they're like the leaders and they're just cranking stuff out very quickly. But now it's like, I don't know, like maybe it like that shifted, and maybe it's only, it's down to like 90%, but maybe it's 50-50, who knows? I think there's some opportunities for these other charging networks. I do want to say, sorry to interrupt, but one of the things, like, so as we started this transition, first, it was like I was opposed to Ford adopting the Tesla adapter. People kept on saying it's like it's open source and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, it actually wasn't true open source the way that I, as an IT person, know open source. So I was like, it's not really open like you think it is. And it was proprietary. And then Tesla switched and said, okay, we're going to come out with the NACS, North American Charging Standard, and we're just going to make it the standard. And it was like, well, that's not actually how it works. And it actually is not been put forth as a public standard. So I was like, I'm still have my reservations. And I actually said, when Ford said that we're going to use the NACS adapter, and we're going to switch to NACS, I was like, great. And I actually have this comment. I won't pop it up on the screen or anything like that, but I did actually find it. I said last year during one of the Inside EVs podcasts, is like, I worry that Elon might do something crazy after Ford agrees to switch that could disrupt our access to the superchargers. And I'm like, this is sort of what I was talking about. But the one huge thing that's changed since then is that Tesla actually did submit it to the SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers, to become a standard. So SAE J3400 is now what we should be calling it, and we're going to start to switch that. In our video titles, we'll probably still say NACS a lot because that's what people are searching for, so we got to be able to have them find it. But we'll start trying to get people to switch over to J3400 because it's very important to make that as a distinguishing factor so that people understand what we're actually talking about. And there's a lot that goes along with that because they're including standards for the connector, for the plug and charge portion, making sure that's written into the standard for the bidirectional charging, as well as, and this is really key, is like the adapters. So as you may know, like we've reviewed the A to Z and the electron adapter. We love the A to Z adapter as an option, even though it's not supported by Tesla or Ford or Rivian right now. But the A to Z is going through their UL certification. That's now been finalized. So it's like they're going to go through the certification process. And that's all possible because SAE J3400 and the associated standards with that are in the public domain, which is really, really cool. Before, if it was like Tesla NACS, they didn't have to certify anybody, and you couldn't like really certify somebody on, on using another person's protocol and standards. But now, long story short, this is really great. We're going to start saying J3400 from here on out.
And you actually took what I was thinking of, which is totally that I remember when we were, when Jim Farley and Elon Musk got on that call and announced the change, we were excited about it. And we spoke about how there were concerns about if Elon Musk would do anything unpredictable, because he has a lot of power.
Yeah.
Like he has a lot more power than any CEO really.
And it's like we've used the CCS network with I won't say no issues, but no major issues. Like we've always been able to charge. We've done lots of road trips, so it wasn't like, oh my gosh, if he cuts us off from the SuperCharger network, we'll be stranded. What we were sort of worried about was like we have a YouTube channel. We recommend cars, and it's like I would hate to recommend somebody to go like, hey, you could buy a Mustang Mach-E or a Ford F-150 Lightning or a Rivian R1T, R1S, and you have access to the Tesla SuperCharger network, and then something happens and they lose access, would basically, I think, just be really bad. Like some people might actually make themselves dependent on a SuperCharger network. Nobody's losing access, so that's great news. But I think there are some people like us that were like looking forward to that expansion.
And I will say, I was concerned at the idea that something that big could happen at someone's whim. So the rumors that have been around, like the one that you first talked about in the beginning, that it was, and like we said, rumor or just, word of mouth, that it was retaliation for, was it Rebecca Tanucci?
Yeah.
For her not reducing the department. So that is very unpredictable behavior. That is, that kind of behavior is not a work environment that I think is very healthy for everyone. And so if that is behavior that occurred, that would make me really sad. And I don't want that to be the way that other automakers now have to interact with. You know what I mean? So, but it's all rumor. So
to me, what's interesting is like everybody, and I don't want to get on Elon too much, but everybody talks about like he's an engineer, blah, 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 blah. And he has an engineer's mind. But to me, it is a very poor way to like set an arbitrary number saying like we have this much excess in the overall company. So therefore, the SuperCharger network or team, you need to cut this percentage as well. It's the same thing when you're dealing with government budget or anything like that. It's sort of like if you do like blanket cuts, it means you're cutting some things that shouldn't have been cut, and some things that are being cut, you may not even be cut enough. But it's sort of like, to me, it's like you take the data, you analyze the data, you look at the results, then you say, okay, based on my study, survey, whatever, this department can take this much cut and this department can take that much cut. But to go like, 15% each department or 10% each department just seems pretty poor engineering mind way of making a decision.
Well, and I totally understand the economic situation is tough and businesses may have to reduce expenses, and a huge portion of expenses is personnel. But you would never want a reduction of personnel to be retaliation. That just shouldn't be the case. And it should hopefully be something that's somewhat planned. So there was a question in the beginning, I think, whether anyone else knew. I don't think in any way that no other automaker, probably barely anyone else at Tesla probably knew what was happening.
Yeah.
So we get budget cuts, but you would hope that it's done carefully and with consideration and without like the act of retribution or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah. Again, we could dive deeply into how Tesla is running their business. They're obviously been successful. Elon's obviously been very successful. The last comment that I'll leave is like a lot of people were like, well, you haven't run $1 billion company. You're not the richest person in the world. He must know what he's doing. And that's a very, 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 very poor way of looking at somebody's decision making. Just because like past success doesn't equal future success. It's a good indicator that probably makes a lot of good decisions, but it doesn't mean every decision has been the correct one. In the past, doesn't mean every decision in the future is going to be the correct one. And if you come under that assumption, even personally, like think about it yourself. You wouldn't want to be like, hey, I've always been right, so I'm just going to like, whatever decision I make, it must be the right one. You go like, wait, I still am going to take time and make these decisions carefully. I don't know.
I don't know, because now I'm thinking like you do vet a doctor, but I see your analogy.
No.
Did they have successful surgery?
So even with a doctor, like you're gonna go and say like he has good reviews. I talked to him. He's made got a lot of awards. But if he's like, yeah, I need to remove your gallbladder, and you'd be like, I haven't had any problems. You would say like, you'd question that. You would be like, why? Tell me why. Tell me how you came to that conclusion. Are there any alternatives? You wouldn't just go like, well, you made a lot of right decisions in the past. Just go ahead, cut wherever you want. You want to take my appendix while you're in there? Yeah, you know what I mean? You're going to be like, let me question your decision making. But anyways, sorry. I said we were going to do that, and we're doing that. Something else that people have touched on this briefly, but I don't think enough. So the NEVI funding, and that's from the infrastructure bill. Like there's a ton of money going into building DC fast charging sites along corridors throughout the U.S. that are well traveled, trying to get them like within every 50 miles of each other. Tesla has been the most successful company. I believe they have about 18% of the NEVI sites awarded so far. There haven't been a ton. But a couple of things. One, like what's going to happen with those 18 sites? Because if they're not under construction, everything's in limbo. So that's concerning as a taxpayer, first of all. And then also those sites are on those critical corridors. So I'm like, crap, we just may have set that back. And NEVI funding is a whole process. So will that have to get reset? So that's a bit frustrating. Then the other thing is like if it was 18% of the ones that have already been awarded, that also means they're doing a great job, of submitting bids to get these sites built. And that means now we may have like an 18% gap. You know what I mean? It's like the other companies are going to have to fill in that gap. Hopefully they will. The one thing about the NEVI sites, and you may have heard them talk about this on Batteries Included this morning in Kyle's video. I don't think Tesla's submitting true NEVI compliant sites that support up to 1,000 volt cars. It's sort of funny in the way that they worded it. It's like you got to support a range of voltage. But what I see that is like you're supposed to support the whole range. Tesla's just like, yeah, we support part of the range. You just said we have to support the range. You didn't say the whole range. And they're getting awarded these sites. So I do have an issue with that, but that's irrelevant. I actually think overall it's like very positive that Tesla has been getting these sites and it's going to get them in the ground quickly and cheaply. And it's sort of unfortunate that may grind to a halt, and hopefully we didn't just screw ourselves awarding them already 18%. So yeah, we talked briefly a bit about the V4 rollout. That's something that's like a big concern for everybody. I wonder if that played a factor, but I also like now wonder like, is that just going to grind to a halt? Is Tesla going? I mean, I wouldn't. They got the Cybertruck, so I have a feeling they're going to rehire people and they'll kick off the V4 stuff again, and maybe they'll get like a quicker, actually more seamless rollout. And
I mean, there's no question that the SuperCharger team was doing a great job, and they were very necessary. So yeah, perhaps it really was a way of just calling everyone and then bringing back the necessary. But they were definitely, efficient in doing what they needed to do, clearly.
Overall, I think like the thing that a lot of us are concerned with is overall DC fast charging expansion. I was hoping it would just be at this like super fast pace. One interesting thing that I looked up today, because we sort of all have been like, Tesla is doing such a great job. It just seems like every day you see just new Tesla stations coming online, and the network is just expanding very, very quickly, especially compared to like EA that seemed to like grind to a halt the past 2 years as they've been dealing with some maintenance issues. And I looked it up and it said, and I'm just grabbing numbers. I actually used Gemini to grab some of these numbers, but, take that with how you will. But they said that the 2023 Tesla superchargers grew by about 33%, which is like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But think about this. Tesla sales last year were up 38%. So that means 38% more cars. Now, granted, some Teslas, crashed or got sold or whatever, like meant their end of life, we'll say. So I think that was a small percentage, but still 38%, that means there's more cars for basically less stations per car at the end of 2023 than there were at the beginning of 2023, even with the fast growth of the supercharger network. And then now we're in 2024, it was still growing at a pretty good pace. But then now you just added in, they're adding Fords, they're adding Rivian. Hopefully the other manufacturers will get on board as well and get their adapters out there. We hear GM is very close. But it's like they're selling cars faster than they're growing the supercharger network. And they're now also adding in other manufacturers. So I'm like, it's really cool how fast they're expanding. But now it's like, more important than ever, Iona and Electrify America and EVgo all need to really step it up. And, going back to just our overall EV charging thing is like, we need to circle back because like around here in San Diego, around in Vegas, in LA, there's a lot of DC fast charging superchargers and Electrify America and whatever that are almost constantly full or busy. And a lot of those, it's like if we had more level 2 charging at home, at apartments, and at places of work, that could solve some of this as well, and for a lot cheaper. So we know that there's companies that are working on that as well. So hopefully that continues. But I feel optimistic that maybe this void will allow more of those to develop. And I was sort of thinking about this today as well, as like, a week or so ago, Tesla was like leading so much that I almost think like maybe cities and companies and whatever may have been like, yeah, they're like, Tesla's going to fix all of this. So when you were going to a small business owner like, hey, we need, charging, they may be like, yeah, but there's like a Tesla supercharger just down the road. We don't need to worry about it. But now maybe things will shift if they even know. I don't know. It was just a random thought.
No, it's funny because I was thinking the same thing, actually. And maybe it's something that we should focus on a bit. And you'll have to let us know if you're interested. Obviously, we did the tour of Livingston Energy Group, and we know companies that are working on greater access for level 2 charging in public places. And obviously, that's something that we need to work on in apartment complex and multifamily dwelling, as I keep hitting my watch on the table. So that's something that maybe we need to spend more time delving into. And we're actually going to the, is it Advanced Clean
Transportation
Expo shortly, like in 2 weeks. So we're going to be talking to some clean energy companies and delving into some of that. So that is going to be really important, because for a lot of the people like around us in this bustling metropolitan area, the people who are DC fast charging every day, if they had level 2 charging at home, wherever their home, whether it's a single family or multifamily, this would not be an issue. And of course, we're rolling into summer now. Everyone was getting excited about their summer road trips. People have been picking up their adapters, their third-party adapters, whatever they feel comfortable picking up for their summer road trips. So this big Tesla announcement is actually kind of, I'm sure, putting a dampener on the comfort. A damper.
I don't know. What is it? You tell us.
on the idea of people's trips. But at this time, I'm sure you can go take your summer road trips. And if you have a Ford EV, if you have a Rivian, you have access to the Tesla SuperCharger network. And if you have a Tesla, you have access. And if you don't, you'll be at Electrify America, EVgo, CCS chargers. It'll be as is, but we will probably see more of the repercussions next summer when everyone's doing their road trips then, right? But for the majority of the time, we're charging at home, and that's why I was thinking like we should work on getting other people charging at home, because it shouldn't be a luxury.
And we got some pushback on Twitter, like when I was posting some stuff about this. Some people are like, "Why are you panicking? You know, that supercharger is still there." And yeah, it is. You know, like, don't panic. You know, if you were only using Electrify America and home charging and whatever last week, and you're like, "Oh no, the supercharger network is, you didn't have it last week, don't have it this week." That doesn't change. If you had a Tesla, nothing has changed. You know, that wasn't the point of like our panic. We are EV advocates. We are EV ambassadors. EV Electric Vehicle Association EV Road Trip Ambassadors of the Year. We got to throw that in there. So it's sort of like our business is to think about like where the EV industry is going, and this is concerning. So it's like, I'm not panicked. I'm not like, oh no, I can't drive my car to the market tonight. Or where are we going? First Friday.
The drum circle.
Yeah, we can't go drive there because Tesla Supercharger network is down. It's not that. It's like, what are we going to do in 2026, 2027? That's what we're trying to worry about. And the idea is like, you don't wait until 2026 and 2027 to panic. You sort of go like, raise the red flags now. Let's get this issue out there and known. Let's put pressure on these companies to provide solutions. And that includes Ford, GM, Chevy. Well, GM and Chevy are same. Rivian, Iona, Electrify America, Tesla. Like, you know, make our voices heard of like, we're worried about this, as well as cities and places of work of like, hey, why don't you put in level 2 charging at the city park or at places of work? And then, you know, as we keep on pushing for this, we as EV owners need to let everybody know that this is what we want. And we are not just this little sliver of a community. We're growing. It's growing quickly. Contrary to a lot of beliefs, it's still growing quickly. And this is the future. Let's see.
And when we say we do mean you guys as well, because obviously we work remotely. We don't actually have to drive that much, and we have charging at home. But we know there are a lot of you guys that don't, and a responsibility that we take for having any sort of platform is that we have to advocate, and that we have to share your voices and elevate your voices as well. So like when we say we're talking about you guys too.
And one of the things that we've been telling people lately, especially Ford and Rivian owners, because we just got access to the SuperCharger network, is like, charging is probably as bad as it's going to get right now. It's going to keep getting better because the supercharger network's expanding. These other people are coming online. So it's going to get better and better. Now I think I have to sort of like go like, we may have another couple of rough years. It's a little bit of unknown. So that's mainly it. Not panicking. There's just a lot of unknowns, and we're trying to address those. If you are like with GM or Hyundai, if you own one of those, like this is also the time where you put pressure on those companies and go like, what's happening with our adapter? What's happening with the conversion? They probably don't know, but it's like, put pressure on them. Like, we need to get this resolved. We need GM, Hyundai, Kia, VW. We need all of them to also have access. If you are a Tesla owner, you want to see your supercharger network grow. You guys have had great supercharger access and ease of charging, and you want that to continue. You don't want it to be cluttered up by a bunch of people that are now using your busier and busier superchargers. You guys, you own the product and you are customers of the charging side of the business. Like, put pressure on them to like make sure what they sold you is what you're still getting. You want a great supercharging experience. Just for a lot of you, that's why you bought a Tesla versus a Ford. Make sure they stand up to their end of the deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like cars are so expensive. This is the thing that's been frustrating for a while. It's like the Mach-E, like we think it's a fantastic car. But if you road trip a lot, and especially in certain areas of the country, like I said this when we reviewed our Mach-E back in 2021, we lived in Denver at the time. Mach-E was fantastic choice. We had charging at home, charging around Denver was great. We were taking road trips to San Diego. Charging was no issue. Highly recommend it. But if you lived in like Wyoming or Mississippi or West Virginia, do not recommend it because unless you have home charging and you don't road trip, because it's like around there, it's like you just couldn't DC fast charge in Wyoming at the time unless you went to a Harley Davidson dealer and hoped that they didn't have it blocked off. So it was really rough back then. So yeah, you look confused.
No, I'm not confused at all. No, I'm quite impassioned. Like I think your point about like a lot of people have bought their Teslas for the supercharger network, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people that we've heard from have felt like they could get an EV, like a non-Tesla EV, because they didn't want a Tesla, but they wanted something else, because of access to the supercharger network, because of the expansion, the reliability, all the things that are great about the supercharger network. So I think you're totally right. Like a lot of people bought the supercharger network. They were not buying just a Tesla. They were buying the supercharger network. We
actually had those comments exactly. It's like, I didn't buy a Tesla, I bought the supercharger network.
The supercharger network. And as we started sort of like getting into the network, there was definitely, we heard that a lot. So you're right. Like, it's a big deal to have it abandoned by the company.
I wouldn't say abandoned.
Hopefully
how do we
not.
phrase this?
I don't know.
Yeah. There's been some people on the maintenance side that say that they still work at Tesla, and honestly, they say they're worried about maintenance suffering. I don't think. I think in the maybe for a month or two, but I think in the end, it's not going to be that big of a deal. And I'm going to flip to, and we're going to try to wrap this up now. We've been going on for a while. We're going to wrap this up with just our future prediction. Like, let's try to jump ahead 5 years from now and where I think things are going to be. I think in 5 years, Tesla's still going to have the largest DC fast charging network. Their market share may slip a little bit, but I think EA, EVgo, Iona will have bigger slices of the market then. And I think in the end, it might end up being a good thing. Like I was saying, like it'd be nice, like you pull off the freeway and you see like, well, there's a supercharger network over there and it's next to McDonald's, but there's an In-N-Out over there and EVgo is next to the In-N-Out. I'm going to go over there, but my kid wants chicken. So actually we've been overridden and we have to go to the Iona that's next to Kentucky Fried Chicken or something. You know what I mean? It's sort of like back to those type of things. Or you get there and you're like, as you're rolling in, you see like one is 5 cents cheaper than the other per kilowatt hour. So I think that could be really good. I think it's good to have, this talent that will be spread hopefully throughout the industry. So in the end, I think there's so much money that's going to be needed to be put into the infrastructure. But I think there's a lot of money to be made. I know when Ford and others started announcing that they were going to be on the Tesla supercharger network, I think it was CNBC projected that Tesla could make $6+ billion over the next few years by letting other cars charge there, partially because we pay a slight surcharge, which is fine. So there is money that can be made in DC fast charging. It was really hard. Like if you think about, again, going back to Wyoming, you put an EA station there back in 2021 and there was hardly anybody up there that owned one, hardly anybody up there that's going to be road tripping through there. It's a little bit of the chicken and egg, but there's nobody there and there's no charging stations there. If you were to put one there, it's like it's really hard to sustain DC fast charging business when you don't have enough throughput. And we talk about this a lot too, as well as like when we first got our Mach-E back in 2021, we were excited to do road trips. We would come into an EA station usually that was 4 stalls. And back then it was like disappointing, not because of the charger wasn't working, but because there was nobody else there. We wanted to see some other car there and we were never seeing anybody there. And it's really hard for people to make money when it's very low utilization rates. Now that the EVs are getting out there more and more, it's becoming a more sustainable business, a profitable business, and people are getting a bit more creative. There's some companies near here. Rove Charging is opening up one in Santa Ana pretty soon. It's going to be like a charging hub. They're going to have like a lounge. They're going to have other things going on there. So there is opportunity. I'm really excited by where DC fast charging is going. And in the end, I think as consumers, this may be actually an excellent thing in 5 years' time once we get through this next rough year or two.
I don't know what's going to happen, but it is interesting thinking of charging stations like Rove that are going to be huge destination charging. And then now more so what we've been thinking of just like a plethora of charging options. I kind of hope that we have more of the just charging options popping up everywhere. So like a 1 square block has like at least 2.
And Rove is doing fast charging.
Yeah, but if they're doing like a big location.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah,
like I think,
like
I think it'll be exciting to see more smaller locations. So if we have the 4-stall Electrify America, whatever, fine. But if there's another one down the street, just because then I'm excited about the options, about the In-N-Out or the KFC or whatever. Like, I think there's a really beneficial way to pitch it to businesses as well, because we're going to be there for 45 minutes.
Yeah. And it also comes down to maybe in the future it'd be 20 minutes. But anyways, for some cars now it is. It's also just sort of like oftentimes now, like coming across like I-40 or I-70, it's like if you get off the freeway and Electrify America is over on that side, that's where everybody's going over to. It would be nice when we get to the point to where, if I'm going east, I go to the one on this side. I'm going west, I go to the one on this side. Just more convenient. And, we all talk about DC fast charging times, as Liv was just talking about. But it'll be nice that I don't have to spend an extra 5 minutes, like going through a couple of extra stoplights to get to a DC fast charger, because there's one
right there
closer to the freeway. So anyways, that's our, I would say 2 cents, but
that's our rambling. It's a weird, crazy thing, and a lot of people seem to think it's a weird, crazy thing, and a lot of us don't know what's going on. So we kind of absorbed it for a couple of days, and we weren't sure if we were going to share. And Patrick did a couple polls, and it was sort of 50-50. So we just decided we would share and touch base with you guys. We don't have a lot of input. We don't have a lot of insight into what's going on at Tesla. But as we get insight potentially into what's going on at Ford or from anyone else, we will share it with you guys. But you have to let us know what you think about this craziness and all of that down below, because it really is just opening up the conversation with you guys on our side as Ford EV users or whatever you are. We know not all of you are. So let us know your thoughts. What's going on? What's happening? I don't know. What is happening?
And if you have contacts, if any of you want to contact us off the record or on the record or on camera or off camera, let us know. We're always willing to talk to people. We have talked to people that we are keeping things just like off the record. It's not like anything juicy has been said, because I think all of us are sort of like, I don't really know. So, but if you're curious, but yeah, we try to respect everybody's professional and personal privacy as well, and comfort, personal and professional comfort as well. So, But we should wrap it up. We got places to go, and we got to edit this and get it out quickly.
Indeed. So thank you so much for joining us for this video in which we rambled on and on about the Tesla SuperCharger layoffs. A huge thank you to our patrons whose names are scrolling across the screen right now. I need to raise my chair. We appreciate you guys so very much. You and our YouTube members help support us and our channel, and we truly deeply appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. And just remember that whatever you drive,
stay charged.
is that it? Or would that?
That's a new one
just
for this
stay
video
charged.
only. Stay charged. You can buy the shirt, I think. Can you?
You can buy the shirt. Yeah.
Shop.mockevlog.com.
Okay, good.
Link in the description.
Stay charged. Bye.